Hey, my name is Elma. Welcome to my channel. Thank you for joining me here today. What I'm going to be talking about today is Christmas reads that I read in December. So last December, I started this little booktube journey, so to speak, um, and I started watching all these wonderful channels and all the amazing books people were reading, fun books, and I remember that during the month of December, a lot of people were reading really fun Christmas reads like Christmas romance, rom coms, and the covers were just so pretty. And just, there's just such a ton of Christmas books that I never really even ever looked at before. So I made a little note to myself that said, hey, at the end of this coming year, I want to read some Christmas reads. I think it'll be fun. So, like I said, the end of last year, I started watching a lot of booktube channels, and I kind of challenged myself for the year of 2023 to get back into reading. I hadn't done that in a long time, and so I did that and had a lot of fun every month participating in different readathons to help me motivate me to read more. So, did that, and then so right now I'm going to talk about the books that I finished in December that and sadly I don't have any of them to hold up to you because a lot of them were library books. I do have one that I actually own, but I don't have it with me because I lent it to my mother-in-law because I knew that she'd love it. So let's start with the books that that I read. Okay, so the first book I read in December was a book called The Christmas Bus. And this one was so fun. This one is actually one I own, but I've already packed all my Christmas things away, packed up my Christmas tree, and I packed up my Christmas book. So I don't have it with me to show you, but I'll put a picture up here. Um, but that book was by Melody Carson, I believe, and it was a fun, really short Christmas read to kick off the month. It was about a Christmas town and a a little spicy little character that came into town to shake things up, and it had a good little theme for it. I ended up giving that like a 3-star rating because it was just a fun read. The second book I read was Call Me Mrs. Miracle by Debbie Macomber. I believe that's how she says her name. That one was fun. I picked that book out because I saw some booktubers in December were doing what they called Debbie December, and they were reading a lot of her books, Christmas books and such. So I picked that book out, and that one I really enjoyed. It was about a uh, two families kind of brought together by this character, Mrs. Miracle, and I believe this was my first Debbie Macomber book, but I believe there are several books with this character um, that kind of travels around and helps people out and that kind of thing. So that was that was a fun book. I gave that one 4 stars. I enjoyed that one. And then the third book I read this month was a rom com book, and it was called The Holiday Mix Up. And this one, as I was reading it, I got While You Were Sleeping. While You Were Sleeping vibes. If you've ever seen that movie with Sandra Bullock, this had a couple characters where they were doing the fake dating thing, and the guy ends up getting hit by a van, and he's in a coma, just like the movie. And it was a fun book, even though it had similarities. It was kind of a little bit different. There was a brother that came into the into the story that she, of course, kind of was attracted to, and that kind of thing. A little love triangle, although the one guy was in a coma right before Christmas. But it was a fun um, a story. The family was from Mexico, which was really interesting to read their background, the families. That's what I really liked about the story was the family's background, their history of how they came to the area where they lived and had this vineyard, and they brought it up and they were going through some struggles with it and everything. So it was just a fun, really fun story. I said I gave that 3 stars, but now as I'm remembering it, I think that was a 4-star read for me because I really like the story. I like the family aspect. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm looking down at my journal, but I'm looking down, looking at my notes. The next book I wrote was read, not wrote. The next book I read was Catching Christmas, and that was by Terry Blackstock. And that was, as I'm looking down, that's tied with my best books I read. That was, I heard so many people or read so many people talk about how good this book was. So I picked it up at the library. Thankfully, I found it, and I read that really quick. It was really quick, short read, but it was so good. It was about a gentleman who was a taxi cab driver, and he had a fare, was like an older woman that had memory problems in the beginning, and he was driving her all over, and he just kind of got to know her. It's just a sweet story. If you ever want to read a really cute Christmas sweet story, you have to read that book. I loved it. 5 stars for sure. And then the next book I read was A Holiday by Gaslight. And this is another one that came highly recommended. And I love this one too. Such a sweet romance. And it was in the 1800s, I believe. I can't remember since I don't have the book in front of me. But it was um, like a second chance, what they call a second chance dating kind of idea with a young woman who was courting at that time period, courting a man that she didn't feel like he was interested in her because he was pretty solemn and everything. But the book talks about how they were kind of trying to kindle something and make something happen, and it was a really sweet story. I gave that 4 stars. The next book is my other 5-star book. It's called All's Fair in Love and Christmas. And I loved this book. It was such a sweet Christmas book. The character, her name was Mackenzie. I do remember her name, Mackenzie. And she had a problem with social anxiety and just getting in front of people. And I related to her so much because uh, I'm one of those people that don't like to talk in front of people, or I get nervous. I just start sweating and just my knees start shaking and that kind of thing. And it just happens. I can't seem to control it. And she had similar things where she was describing that, and I'm like, I know how she feels. And I love this character. I love the little sweet little romance that she had with her person that she was working with, and they were both competing for the same job position. And I loved his character as well. So that one was a 5-star read for me. Definitely one to pick up if you when you're planning next year's Christmas reads. Or you can read it. You don't even have to wait till Christmas. You can just read it. Then I read The Bridge by Karen Kingsbury. And this one, I thought I would like more. I only gave this one 3 stars. I did not like the whole miscommunication between the two characters, and it was pretty intense how they were miscommunicating with each other. I mean, it really kind of messed up their, I don't know, their lives needlessly for something that could have been explained fairly quickly. And I don't know, I didn't like that part, but it was an okay book for Christmas, little love story. But I just didn't like that kind of idea of that miscommunication. And then I read, I had to read aloud with my daughter. I homeschool my daughter, and for Christmas, for December this month, we did a read aloud, and it was called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever, I think, that story. And it was so funny. I'd heard a lot about it, that it was a funny story. We laughed when we read that. And then after we read the book, we watched the movie, the old movie. I mean, it was like an older movie um, on YouTube. We found it on YouTube and watched it, and it was hilarious. Really sweet little story about a family of delinquent kids. Basically, they were just horrible. But in the end, the happy little ending, things changed. And then the last Christmas book I read was You Make Me Feel Like Christmas by Tony Shiloh. This one was a sweet little romance too. It was about kind of an odd story. A young woman who whose older sister ends up dating her boyfriend, and then ends up engaged to her ex-boyfriend. Kind of, awkward kind of situation. And then her with her fam coming back home to be with her family on Christmas, and then the sister's wedding is like Christmas Eve. So it's all, a lot of drama, but she ends up finding somebody. It's a romance, so she ends up finding somebody during that time. So it's a sweet book. As first Tony Shallow book I've read, and I look forward to reading more of her books because I've heard a lot about how wonderful and cute her books are, and a solid Christian faith message in her book as well. And then, so those are all my not Christian, all my Christmas reads that I've read this month. But I am in the middle of reading my final Christmas, not Christmas, my final December read, and I'll be right back. I need to go grab that. So this is the last book of the year that I'm reading, and this is going to be book number 106. I can't believe it, but I've read, when this book is done, I'll have read 106 books for 2023. And the beginning of the year, I challenged myself in my Goodreads challenge that I would read 40 books. And at the beginning of last year, that was a lot of books for me. I thought that was, pushing myself to read 40, because prior to that, I'd have been lucky to read one book a year. But like I said, I had so much fun with a lot of the monthly readathons to encourage me, to motivate me, and plus I'm so behind on books. As you'll see in my January TBR, I have a lot of books that have been out for years, but they're new to me, so I have a lot to catch up on. This book is the last book I'm going to be reading in December. I'm not quite done with it. I'm just have a few chapters left to go, and I really love it. It's by Susan Meisner, and she was one of my favorite authors this year. I read 3. This might be the 4th book of hers that I've read. Historical fiction, wonderful stories. This one's about about a young woman growing up during World War II, and her from a German family here in the States, who sadly during that time, the United States was not arresting, but putting German families into internment camps, and Japanese families and Italian families, because they were afraid that they were more loyal to their home country, Germany, Japan, or Italy, um, even though they had been in the States for so long. And like, this young girl was actually born in California, so she was an American. But she and her family were sent off to an internment camp where they were there. And this book is about her story of her before she went. She was growing up in Davenport, Iowa, and then while they were in their camp in Texas, and then sadly they were repatriated back to Germany, which, if you don't know the language, and all of a sudden you get shipped someplace that's not home. It's really good. I'm looking forward to finding out how she concludes the story. It's a dual timeline, kind of, because we have her story from her past, and then we also have a future, not a present, 2010, when she's older, thinking about her story and everything. So I'm probably gonna, at the way it's going right now, this is probably gonna be a 4-star read for me, because of it's not as memorable to me as her other books Susan Meisner wrote. And I'm going to be posting later on my memorable books that I read, and hers are definitely going to be on there. This one I don't think is going to make that cut. It's good. It's a good book, but it's not the one of the ones that are more memorable to me. So that's it. Those are my Christmas, like my December wrap up for December. I had a good time reading those Christmas books. I'm looking forward to. And to be honest, I had so many on my list. I checked out. I actually bought books. A lot of these, all these that pretty much all of these that I read, I got from the library. But I bought, I bought some books I didn't even get to read. But I'll save them for next year. And you get busy during Christmas time. You can't read as much as you would like to. But anyway, thank you for joining me today. Please come back. I'm really new to BookTube, and I'm going to be uploading more videos as I'm learning how to do all this. But I'm really enjoying being able to talk to you and talk about all the books that I've read this past year, and look forward to getting more recommendations from you all about what books to read, since I'm so behind on all these books. So you have a blessed day. Hope you have a wonderful new year. And thank you again for joining. Bye bye.